This is an acoustic guitar that has been in my musical sphere for quite a while, though not one I actually owned until about 2018. It's my Alvarez 5040 Koa. Back in the mid-90s, my dad grew interested in picking up a guitar again. He had played years before, but when I was a kid, his was stolen, and he had never replaced it. By this time, he had been retired for a few years and was looking for something to keep himself out of trouble. My dad wasn't interested in going by himself to check out guitar stores closer to where he and my mom lived, but he did want to take the trip to Lansing, Michigan, to look around Elderly Instruments, which at the time was my store of choice. He knew he wanted an acoustic, but beyond that, it was more of a matter of what caught his eye. Obviously, he also wanted my help with the selection. When he and my mom drove over for a visit for a day, about an hour-and-a-half drive, my dad was all ready to go with me to pick out a guitar. At that time, he would go on long walks down the dirt roads around where my parents lived, and pick up bottles and cans to return to the store for spending money. So he had a spending budget in his pocket. We spent a bit of time looking around the store, and my dad picked up numerous used instruments to look over. Finally, he came across this Alvarez, and after only picking it up briefly, he decided that it was exactly what he was looking for. I checked it over and told him that if it was what he wanted, it should serve him well. Soon, we were headed back to my house with his prize. Because it had been so long since my dad had last played, he found a guitar teacher close to home, also paid for through bottle and can returns, and threw himself into learning. He really enjoyed it, and even got to the point where he would play at church now and then. Whenever I would visit my parents, I would inevitably wander into my dad's music room, which was my old bedroom, and pick up his guitar and play. While it was a nice guitar, the neck always felt a bit wider than I preferred, but I wasn't going to complain. It worked for him. My dad also bought himself a small guitar amp, and I gave him an acoustic pickup to use with it. Eventually, my dad decided he wanted another guitar, and ended up picking up one from his local music store where he took lessons. The Alvarez was relegated to sitting in the corner most of the time, except for when I would visit and play along with him. Eventually, after numerous bouts with cancer, my dad pretty much quit playing. It was too tiring, and his hands were bothering him too much for fretting. His guitars sat. After a few years, my dad noticed that the second guitar he had purchased was having an issue with a warped neck. He took it in to be looked at, where he was informed that the company had been bought out, and that the new owners of the company had only agreed to honor the warranty for a set amount of time, and that the time period had elapsed. He was stuck with it. Instead of just sitting on it, the shop agreed to give him a minimal amount for the guitar to be applied towards a new one, which he ended up doing. I had advised my dad against purchasing another guitar, especially for the price he was looking at, but he wanted to try to get back to playing again. He was able to manage it for a short period of time, but he had to stop again due to it being too painful for his hands. He was in his early 80s at this point. Fast forward a couple years, and my dad made the decision that since he wasn't going to be able to play anymore, he would give one of his guitars to me and the other to my youngest brother, who also played. He ended up giving the new guitar to my brother and the Alvarez to me, since I had gone with him to pick it out years ago. Now, while I had previously only noticed the neck width on the Alvarez, I now noticed how much I liked the tone. Also, since I had picked up another guitar with a wider neck, the width issue wasn't an issue at all. On top of that, I really loved the look of the Koa laminate. Today, the Alvarez is my acoustic of choice. It's the one I'll pick up most frequently to write with, as well as to lay down the initial chords for any song that I use an acoustic on. It is also the acoustic I bring forward the most in a mix, and that I will play lead on if the song calls for an acoustic lead. Most of all my guitars, it is the one I'm most attached to because of the connection it has with my dad. At 88, he isn't able to play, but he does listen to the music I write and play with it.